Something great has happened when love has taken hold and it won't let go of us now.
Something here is calling us forward, upward motion. We're drops in one ocean. Roll on.
Will you rise up? We need to dare. Lift up your voice
And boldly say,
we are the ones we've been waiting for. It's the dream of the highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share this with the world that's waiting for a change.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here this evening. And I welcome you to our first online salon in the series of Community on Purpose with Mendhi Audlin. Just as we begin the series, I would like to tell you that we have our special guests, AG&T members, people from Mendhi's network. This is a very special series that we'll be having together once a month so that you'll all be able to benefit from the wisdom collected in this field that will help you as individuals and organizations really build a community on purpose. You'll get tools and tips, we'll have discussions. I'm very excited about this content because I think it's really needed in our community right now. So just in order to, before we begin, I had asked Reverend Jacqueline Edwards if she would do an opening invocation for us this evening, and yet right now I don't happen to see her. She hasn't joined in with us yet. So I think I'm going to ask for a minister volunteer from our audience. Oh, I see a friend of mine here, Reverend Denise Schellink. Denise, I hate to put you on the spot, but if I promote you to a panelist, would you be willing to give us an opening invocation today? There she is.
Yes, of course. Can you hear me? All right. Well, I'm blessed and delighted to be with each and every one of you. And so let's just go to that precious and sacred space that is within each one. And so we just call forth that magnificent intelligence to speak through us, to listen through us, to express through us. And we give thanks for Agent and Mendhi and all the beautiful leaders that are on this call as we all march forth to express the divine qualities that are in each and every one of us and creating ministries on purpose with clarity and grace and ease. And so we thank you, God, for each one here as we contribute to the intellect that lives within. And we see something magnificent being birthed here through this monthly series. And for that, in advance, we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
And so it is. Denise, thank you. I know I kind of put you on the spot, but I knew that you were up to it. Okay, so let's get right into it now. The first thing that I would like to do, of course, is introduce you to Mendhi. Well, first of all, she's an author of the book, What If It All Goes Right? Don't you love that title? Creating a New World of Peace, Prosperity, and Possibility. Mendhi's an inspirational speaker, author, and consultant in the area of personal development and spiritual leadership. She is the creator of Spirit Groups, a small group ministry program providing leadership training for mission-driven individuals and organizations through the use of her 5 spiritual disciplines for personal and organizational growth and her step model for membership engagement. There's much more to say. She's a pioneer for personal and spiritual growth and development. In 2004, she was the one who launched Unity Online Radio, which was formerly called Unity.fm, where she hosted their first weekly broadcast, The Leading Edge. As the network producer, she grew the network to more than 20 programs, 100,000 listeners, reaching people in more than 60 countries. So, Mendhi, there's so much more to say about you, but I think that everyone's going to get the gist of who you are as we continue the program and the series. So I'm going to hand it over to you right now.
I am so delighted. I am delighted to be here and to be part of this series, and so grateful to be part of this AG&T community. I've been a member of Agent for well over a decade, and I'm really excited to have this new forum for us to come together and discuss. So the idea behind a salon is interaction, right? That we can discuss and share ideas. So I want to welcome everybody that's here. I have some very special guests, and I'm very grateful for some of the friends and colleagues who have joined me for this evening. And as we go through this, I also see in our attendee list, I see some familiar names, and I see some people that I haven't met yet. So I thought this would be a really great opportunity, you know, since this is a salon, this is an interactive opportunity. The first question that I would have for you, and I know we have this chat feature down here, which is just wonderful so that you can interact not only with me, but with each other, is to share a little bit, introduce yourselves to each other, but also share what is important to you about building spiritual community. So why are you here? What is it that is important to you about building spiritual community? For me, I began as the spiritual leader for Unity of Wimberley in Wimberley, Texas. I pioneered a church there before going off and starting the Unity Online Radio Network. And then I did a book launch when my book came out. And I spoke at a lot of Unity churches, a lot of CSL churches, New Thought churches, mostly in the South, Southwest. And at that time, I was living in Dallas-Fort Worth. I saw mega churches on every corner where I lived. And yet when I would go on the road, I would see, you know, these wonderful New Thought churches with amazing people giving these inspiring messages, but they weren't having the same level of growth. Many of them were struggling, some of them struggling just to keep the doors open. And as I would go back home to Dallas-Fort Worth and see these thriving churches, I started wondering, what are they doing there? What's the difference? You know, why is it that some of our New Thought communities are fizzling while in other denominations, people are thriving? So I wanted to see, what are they doing that we aren't doing? And what can I learn from them? So it's been a 4, 5, 6, I don't know, I've been doing this for a long time, studying what creates sustainable growth in a spiritual community and learning from many of our friends in other denominations what it takes. And here's what I've noticed, is that it's not an accident. You know, our teachings say that thought creates reality, that there is a consciousness that creates a result. And I wanted to understand, what is the consciousness that's creating this result of growth and outreach and impact? And what I noticed in these thriving churches, these exploding churches, was several things. One was there was a sense of connection, and there was a sense of systems and purpose and strategy that I thought we could learn a lot from. So this series is about, how do you build spiritual community? What is the secret? And I can tell you it's not a secret. What is the structure, the systems that need to be in place for us to be able to build thriving community? So my first question for you, and I see Martha. Hi, Martha. Thanks for being in the chat today. So if anyone wants to jump in and just share, why is this important to you? What is your passion behind building spiritual community? Maybe share what community you are a leader in. I'm assuming you're a leader in a spiritual community, or that you're on your own path. This particular series, now I know we're going to be doing this every month, but the foundation, the thing that I found that's underneath everything else that we do, is that the ministries that I see that are thriving all have a very solid, very clear, very focused sense of purpose, building community on purpose. Now, in our movement, we have a lot of churches that have mission statements, we have purpose statements. When I travel around to churches and I say, what's your mission statement? Everybody's like, oh yeah, we've got one. We say it every Sunday. We put it in a bulletin. We read it every week. And I said, well, what is it? And then people will go, well, I don't quite remember how it all goes, but we do say it every Sunday. Well, if you say it every Sunday and you don't know what it is, then it's probably not alive in your community. What I find in thriving communities is that the mission is alive, and it doesn't take more than one visit to know what the mission is, because it is so alive in the culture of the organization. So whether you are an individual or you are an organization, having a sense of purpose, a sense of mission is the place to begin. So my first question, well, I guess this is the second question. So the next question for you is, if you have a personal mission statement, or if there's a mission statement that you've been using with your organization, I invite you to share that in the chat as well, because that gives us a starting point to see, what are we about? So I brought a couple guests with me, and I want to start out by introducing you to Janet Redford. Janet Redford is the president of the board at Unity at Red Rocks, where I serve as the spiritual leader. I began there in August, and the first thing we did was we started working on, we cleaned up some branding, but more than that, we cleaned up the mission statement. There was a mission statement. It was in the bulletin. They read it. They saw it on a frequent basis. But when I asked, what is it? I had one person that could kind of stumble through it. It wasn't alive in the community. So one of the first things we did was we took what we had, we took the key components of it, and we reframed it in a way where we could create a system and strategy to fulfill that mission. So Janet, I'm going to introduce you, say hello, introduce yourself, and if you could share a little bit about what you saw, because you were there before I came along to see the before and after. What happened, and what has the impact been from your perspective?
Thank you, Mindy. My perspective is, before Mindy arrived, we did read that mission statement every Sunday. And it was very long, and so you couldn't memorize it because it had so many parts to it. And so it was something that we did maybe in a practice of Sunday, but were we actually engaging in it? I'm not sure if we were actually doing that. We were engaging in different ways as far as going deeper in our spiritual growth, but as far as what we considered a mission, we didn't have like a targeted vision piece. And that's what changed when Mindy came and helped us work through our mission statement to actually get to an active live mission statement. The process alone was really good. We had created a town hall meeting, and we really got some feedback. And what was really nice about it as a board is we went through and looked at the verbs and what was it that we were acting on. And so our mission statement came from like a paragraph and bulleted, numbered items that was more of an identity statement to a actual practicing mission statement. And so Unity at Red Rocks, our mission is we're transforming lives through the power of love. And it felt like once we put the target in place of what we were actually focusing on and what we were choosing to do as our part of our purpose in the organization of our spiritual center, everything started to fall in place. Our service projects, even having service projects, it's like it laid the foundation of how we were going to work as a spiritual center. So that's what I see as a before and after of really getting a mission statement that not only can you remember, but it's alive in all of us as members.
Mentioned we do small groups. To me, small groups are critical for fulfilling the mission. They go beyond what we were able to do on Sunday. So we'll talk more about that as we go through the series. But one of the things that was really exciting for me, we're about to launch our next small group series. And I actually hear the hosts of our groups saying things like, we're going to go show our community what love is. Come on, everybody. Our group is going to be the lovingest group there is. That the language has filtered into the community already. It's been 6 months, and now it's part of our vernacular. It's part of our sense of identity. It's what we know that we're here to do, and it's a unifying force for that. So I saw in the chat, so we've had some feedback. So thank you for those of you that are chatting. Of course, you can chat with each other, and it's great for me to see what's going on there as well. Denise, I saw you had shared your mission statement, your personal mission statement, transforming lives one heart at a time. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We have ministerial student here in Colorado, so a local for us. I'm here in Evergreen, Colorado. So thank you for joining us as well. Transforming lives through the power of love is what we use at Unity of Red Rocks. And then there's also a comment, even with a strong purpose or mission, how does the personality of the minister or spiritual leader affect creating a thriving community? Oh, that is a fabulous question. It's a fabulous question because that's our paradigm. Is it takes the charismatic personality of the minister to drive the organization. And I will say, I agree that you must have a strong leader. And I will also say that that leader cannot only be the minister, that you must have strong leadership within your community. So it takes a leader to be able to hold that vision, to be able to cultivate other leaders. But as you can see from Janet, we have a powerful board, amazing leaders. And now through our small groups, we're creating this whole subculture of leadership where, so I have, a particular personality, and I do my best to create an inspiring Sunday service. But I will tell you, what drives our mission is not our Sunday service. Our Sunday service is a point of entry for people that are new. The glue of our community is the love that people experience, the transformation that people experience through the power of that love in their small groups, which is why I am such a huge proponent of small group ministry as a way to carry your mission further than what you could possibly do on Sunday morning. The challenge with Sunday morning, especially when you have a mission, a minister-centric ministry, is that it's dependent upon the personality of the minister. The minister has to put on the show and entertain, and everyone sits back and says, did I like that message? Did I like the music? Is the personality of the minister, is that feeding me spiritually? And when that's the consciousness of the congregation, then the minister always has to perform. And the congregation can never grow and thrive because everything's dependent on the minister. So what we're talking about is creating a mission-centric culture, that's where it begins. It begins with a mission that you can build a strategy to, that everybody can get behind, not just the minister, although the minister is critical and must be behind it. Everybody has to get behind the mission in order to cultivate more leaders. Let's see. So Janet says, having us focus on being mission-centric, it's what has been a change agent for our spiritual center. Mission-centric is the key. I absolutely agree. So I want to give you a couple tips. These are some tips that we use. We have something called an engagement mastermind, which is a tool for helping you engage people into your mission through your Sunday services and through small groups and any other services that you happen to provide. So if you have your mission statement in front of you, this is a great test to kind of see, are we on track, or do we need to do a little bit of tweaking? What we've done at Unity at Red Rocks, and this was inspired by Dr. Gary Simmons, who pioneered this technique, is we introduced our mission as a pilot. Said, here, we're going to try it out for 3 years, and at the end of that 3 years, we can either take it on as our mission, or at least by then, we'll understand what being in a mission-centric culture is about, so that when we create it together, it will be strategic. It won't just be a bunch of nice fluffy words that we all want to get our favorite word in there. We understand the purpose of the mission once we've experienced it. So that's what we've been doing at Red Rock. So here's the litmus test, and you can do this with your personal mission statement. Really powerful to do with your organizational mission statement. So here's the first test. 1, is it memorable? So if you can't rattle off your mission statement by memory, then it's probably too long. And that's the biggest challenge I see with most ministries that have a hard time remembering their mission statement. It's not because it's not a beautiful, powerful mission statement. It's just that it's too long. It goes on and on and on. So short is more powerful. It makes it more memorable. One of the things that we do in our mastermind is we identify the verb. If you were to nail down your mission statement to one verb, what is the one verb that is driving your mission statement? And it needs to be a verb. So we are a vibrant spiritual community is not a mission statement. It's not even the beginning of a mission statement. It's a vision. So a mission statement is, what are you here to do? Which means your verb is the most important piece of that mission statement. So we start with a verb. Transforming lives through the power of love is what ours is. So check your mission statement. Is it short? Is it memorable? Here's the other thing to look for. Is it outwardly focused, or is it inwardly focused? So if your mission statement is something like, we are a vibrant spiritual community, the mission is all about you, right? It's all about that spiritual center. a mission statement should be a unifying statement that has you connect with what you're here to do beyond the spiritual community, beyond the organization. So our mission is not just to serve us. Our mission is bigger than us. And when your mission is bigger than you, now you've got something that engages people, that challenges people. So it's not just about being entertained. It's about what are we here to do in the world together. So that's the second thing to look for. Is it inwardly focused or is it outwardly focused? And you'll know that it's inwardly focused because it'll say stuff like us and we and our, and you'll have all those personal pronouns. So that's something to look for in your mission statement. Is it active or passive? We talked about the verb. So if you have a being verb, we are a spiritual community, a vibrant spiritual community. You can be that immediately. You don't have to do anything to be a vibrant spiritual community except have a couple people together and, you know, drink some tea. You can have a fabulous, vibrant spiritual community with just a couple people. But my guess is that you want more for that for your spiritual community. If you want to grow and thrive and expand, then it's important that you have something that's active, something that engages people beyond the walls of your community. So our small group program is where we transform lives. We're there supporting each other. It's where we have fun together, we socialize together, we have fellowship together, and we do service projects together. So this is part of our Spirit Groups program, and part of that is taking that mission and having each group decide what that mission looks like fulfilled through service. So we're developing leaders as we're fulfilling the mission. They're tying the mission to their actions in the community and creating these amazing ripples that are inspiring us. We've had incredible connection, incredible engagement. We had 104% of our congregation engaged in small groups, and we've been growing steadily over the past 6 months. So that being said, I also have another special guest that I want to introduce you to. Most of you, he needs no introduction. Most of you know who he is. Here with us today is Dr. Gary Simmons, who is the co-minister of Unity Spiritual Center in Spokane, and you also know him as the author of The Eye of the Storm. You also know him as a ministry consultant. You also know him for lots of different things that he does. But Gary's been doing a lot of work with creating that shift from minister-centric ministry to mission-centric ministry. So Gary, talk about what you're seeing and what our challenges are as we move forward and make this shift.
Well, Mendhi, I think that, can you hear me? Okay. I think that part of what you're pointing to in terms of really empowering our organizations to have more intentionality, which is, I wrote that I'm interested in organizations on purpose. So part of getting to that level of clarity and intentionality around organizations is also craft a mission statement that can be measured. And absence of measuring, and what I mean by measuring is by the stories that people tell. If you don't have transformative stories happening within your ministry, stories that basically are the narrative of you fulfilling your purpose, you're not shifting the culture to being mission centric. You're just still in the context of knowing that you have to have one and you say it, but you're not necessarily embodying it. And when Jane and I came to Unity Spiritual Center in Spokane, no one knew what the mission statement was. So that's when I came up with, we're gonna do a practice one, and it's going to be transforming lives, and we're going to do it until we all can experience the fulfillment of it in our own lives personally, and also see what happens when that becomes our effort to make a difference in the world. And see what happens after we create an organizational structure as to support that intentionality, and to shift our emphasis from Sunday into 24/7. Whenever people are wanting and willing to gather together in the intent to expand our circle and fulfill our purpose through transforming lives, that's what we're open to support. And consequently, we have our concept of funding our organization has shifted because of it, because we're no longer focused on needing to feed people spiritually in order for them to have a sense of valuing us as an organization. We're not asking them to tithe to our church. We're asking them to consider our purpose. And if they can get behind that, then we're adults. Become an owner partner in our organization. We haven't taught a tithing class for over 4 years, and our income has increased every year since we've been there, because we basically have asked people to be real grown up about their sense of ownership and value of what we're about in the context of transforming lives. And it's a new narrative that we need to be putting out there if we're going to be shifting our organizations. Anyway, that's my check-in.
And you've I know you have been doing spirit groups. So we went out there, and that's part of what you do as part of your mission-centric model. And of course, a lot of the things that you're doing, we're seeing happening throughout the movement. We're starting to see that shift. You know, like, what does it mean to be you know, a lot of us know what it's like to be minister-centric because that's the model we learned, but what does it mean to be mission-centric in terms of giving, in terms of volunteerism, in terms of all these different things? What it means to me is that instead of beseeching people to volunteer, or like you said, doing the tithing talk because we need more money for the church and all those types of things that we've traditionally seen happen in many New Thought churches. Now, when the ask comes, the ask is not out of need. It's like, there is enough. You know, God is my source. There is a sense of enoughness. And what we're doing is we're partnering together in the mission. So whether I'm asking for giving, financial giving, tithing, or asking for volunteers, or you know, whatever the ask might be, we're asking for people to give as part of their spiritual growth. It's not because the organization needs it. It's because our mission is to transform your life. And we know that transformation happens when you get engaged, when you get involved, that the more you give, the more you put your heart and soul into it, and it transforms you, not because we need it, but because that's our mission, is to create transformation. So Gary, what would you say is the biggest hurdle that those of us who are used to the minister-centric paradigm, what is the biggest mind shift that we need to step into in order to begin this journey, this transformation into a mission-centric culture?
Well, first off, most of us need models of success before we venture into anything new. And part of the challenge with working in these chaotic times with emergence as being the context out of which our human family is experiencing what's going on in the world, we don't have any maps to second-tier ministry. We don't have any clear-cut ways. There's no New Thought church that is fully inhabiting in this mission-centric model, much less into second-tier organizational dynamics. And so in some ways, we're paving a new path, especially in New Thought. And while the mega churches are in their context, mission-centric, they're still first-tier organizations. They're still managing their own internal well-being based upon how external circumstances are. When we move to second tier, we're basically moving out of a story of separation and into an experience of inner being or interconnectedness. And so the whole dimension of evolving our church, moving out of minister-centric, is moving out of the patriarchal 400-year-old archaic way in which we have established our institution. And in order for us to become relevant, we have to reshape our organizations and how we do church as a ministry practice, so that the comings and goings of ministers don't impact the ministry's capacity to make a difference in the world. When a ministry becomes mission-centric, it can endure the experience of ministers moving in and out because the role changes in a mission-centric church. So there's a lot that's different, but we need to really value knowing that these are times when we have to pave our way. We're pioneering new ground.
Shift, and a culture shift takes time and discernment and patience because we are shifting into something new. That being said, I see comments coming in through the chat, so thank you for sharing your own experience. If you have an experience of making that shift into mission-centric, and I see some of you that I know have been part of our Spirit Groups program, you've been part of some of our trainings. If you would like to share anything, let us know in the chat that you have something you'd like to share. Barbara, you just posted a really interesting comment. Would you like to share about what you've experienced with the season of nonviolence?
Thanks, Mendhi. Yes, this is something that we really didn't anticipate, that in the very beginning, the Gandhi King Season for Nonviolence was the charter program of Association for Global New Thought. I had basically said, I think that we should do this work. And if you as a council support that idea, then I'll work for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in a way that was, we jumped off the block with an engaged program and purpose ahead of us, rather than spending a year figuring out what the stationery was going to look like. Right.
Right.
So what happened over time is that many New Thought churches got involved in the project and took responsibility, but they had very clear instructions about how to conduct the model. And the first step was go out into your community and invite people from other faith organizations and from civic organizations and from schools and from the general community that are interested in the idea of peace and nonviolence. Don't invite them to your church, invite
Mm-hmm.
them to the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, there were a lot of organizations and individuals and communities. I'll use Michael Beckwith's church as an example, the Agape in Los Angeles. People that he had been hoping to form collaborations with for years and wasn't too successful. And this was 20 years ago. He's very successful now. But at the time, he had people coming to his meetings and walking in the door who felt that they were attracted to the Season for Nonviolence and wanted to be on board. So they greatly expanded their community, and so did many of the other churches. But they didn't insist that people become members of the church, or they didn't focus on the church. But the doors were open and people got interested and they learned about what was going on in the churches. And as a result, those churches gained membership and participation as a result of leading with purpose. So that I thought that I didn't anticipate it, but I thought it was very successful as a model.
Well, and that's a great point that you make, is that part of what we're doing with the mission is it's not about just filling the sanctuary. It's really not about, the number of people. It's about the mission. And so when you shift your focus from, it's all about us and we got to, have this many people and this much income and all of that kind of conversation, and make the primary conversation what you're here to do outside of your organization. And like you said, sometimes it's having opportunities for people where there's no pressure. It's, here's who we are, but if you want to visit us, great. It's not a big deal. If you don't, we're just here to create transformation. And that, when it comes across in a pure way, when that's truly what it's about, is creating, in our case, transformation through the power of love. Let us love you in a way that changes your day or changes your outlook. When you can do that in a really pure way, it's much more engaging. People want to be a part of that. That just sitting on a Sunday morning and listening to a talk is it's a hard sell. Especially as we look to new generations, we have millennials who trying to entertain them like they've been entertained by lasers and lights and all that, and none of that matters. They want what's real, they want what's authentic, and they want to make a difference. And so if you can deliver that, an authentic experience that is real, that is transformational, that is making a difference, not just in your community, but out in the world, it's far more engaging. That growth happens naturally when we are in that kind of healthy balance. Gary shared a link to his blog. He has just put out a whole series of videos that can help shift a culture from minister-centric to mission-centric. Janet and I have both been through his training. It's fantastic. And this video series is really helpful if you've got board members or you've got staff. I know when we have board meetings, we watch little videos at the front end so that we're getting ongoing board training about shifting into mission-centric ministry and empowering us as leaders. There's a whole new skill set to develop when you're shifting into mission-centric, because it's not just I said so and so it is. It's really about getting people engaged in what that mission is. So Gary, do you want to talk a little bit about your video series, about what that is and how it can support people in making this shift?
Okay, so it's a four-part video series, and you need to start with part one. Don't go to part four and watch that first, because it won't make any sense at all. But I basically lay out a conversation as to why minister-centric ministry is unsustainable in our current times. And I present a case study that looks at a unity ministry over 36 years. And I talk about it, and it is indicative of what's universal in our New Thought movement, the impact of the comings and goings of ministers. And the minister-centric model of ministry is not without consequences. And so that video series talks about that, and it proposes what if our centrism was not the minister? What kind of movement would we create, and what kind of ministries would we have if our parent organizations were supporting us fulfilling our purpose rather than trying to manage the unintended consequences of our current ministry practice? So that's what that video is about, and I'll have probably about 100 videos made in the next year. I'm basically going to take everything that I've developed and put it out there and see what happens.
And you had a training last fall at Columbine Unity Center in Boulder, Colorado. Janet was there with me. And Janet, do you want to share a little bit about that training? So we took our entire board through your training, Gary, and with the intention of, we had a new mission statement. Now, what do we do with it? So talk, Janet, about what that's meant for you as a board to be able to get that kind of training and support as we're making this shift.
Yes, that training was really good for us as a brand new board coming together with a new spiritual leader, because it really did help us understand the value and really the purpose of having a mission-centric spiritual center. When we got our practice mission statement in place of transforming lives through the power of love, to realize that we are all responsible to focus on that mission, and also that that's where people want to step in, is they want to be involved in a cause, in a movement. And like you said, having a minister be the leader, then we're looking to the person instead of to the cause. And I think that's what was so good about the training that was provided by Dr. Simmons, is that it really helped us see that clear focus, that we really have to strategize and look at what is that pinpoint mission mean. If we're transforming lives through the power of love, it made us go back as a board and say, okay, what does that mean? That means we have to talk to the people, because it's the people who are the cause. And that just helped us get more volunteers and people engaged. That's why I think in our first Spirit group, we did have that 104% enrollment, because people outside of our church wanted to be a part of it. And so they enrolled in the Spirit groups. And so going to that training really did help give us those foundational pieces of what we needed to focus on so that we would know how to create our next steps. So it was a perfect training. I would totally say go watch the 4 videos in sequence so that you can really understand what your next steps and what the board needs to focus on. And that's the cause, the movement of what you're doing.
I'm seeing there's some fun comments going on in the chat room. So thank you for those of you that are interacting with each other. I see connections happening in the chat room, which is fantastic. That's the whole idea behind these salons, is that they are an interactive format. I heard from Robert, who said, thank you for offering this info, although the new ground in Shanghai, China, so hello Shanghai, is quite different from North America. This is still very useful, so thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for everyone who's sharing. I'd like to open it up. If you have questions for me, for any of our panelists today, this is your time. What do you want to know? What would help you in reaching your goal, creating your vision for your spiritual center? And for those of you that have been part of Spirit groups or part of Dr. Simmons' trainings, if you would like to jump in and share as well, we'd love to hear from you as well. So at any time, feel free to post your question or raise your hand, and we can go to you. If you've got your video on, we can just have you interact with our panel here.
Mendhi, I was just wanting to, just as a technical note to our attendees, at any point in this process, we really do encourage you to just raise your hand. I put Denise on the spot before, but if you raise your hand, I'll be able to see that you'd like to make a comment on the screen, and I'll move you into our panelist situation and then put you back after we're done. And if you don't want to, I don't think I need to show your video. I can activate your audio. So please join the discussion, because we were really hoping that that was the kind of format we were establishing here. So I'm going to put you back on audio.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. And I got a question from Jim Youngman, who said, I haven't heard the term spirit group before. Can you explain? I certainly can. So spirit groups are a program that I developed after studying megachurch growth and seeing some of the systems and structures. And what I've seen, as Janet said, what we're trying to create is a movement. We're trying to create something that is alive, not just, come in and meditate and pray, although that's the beginning of it. But then what's beyond that? What's the next step? So part of that, creating that, requires us to have systems and structures. Spirit Groups is a program for small group ministry. It's designed to be part of a mission-centric ministry. And if you're not there yet, it's a great way to transition into that. Whether you are a tiny seed church just getting started in your living room, or you're a church with thousands of people, it's a program that you can use to create systems and structures where people can connect and engage in your mission. And so I think, let me pop over to you, Gary, again, because I know you've been doing Spirit Groups now. It's a program that I've designed. I've been working with Dr. Simmons, I think, for the past 3 years. Has it been 3 years? It seems like, I don't know, 2 years? You can talk about your experience and how it connects with what you're doing in terms of the mission-centric ministry piece.
Sure. Well, we started Spirit Groups in early 2016 after you came to Spokane, and we had nine folks come from other states. That was great training. Anyway, we launched, we first started with our own pilot group just to field test it amongst ourselves. And then we had our launch, and our first launch was over 50% of our community engaged. And then we've launched it. We've had 3 launch windows every year. We've launched 3 times, and so we're on our third, I believe our 6th launch now, and we're doing The Power of 8, Lynn McTaggart's book, The Power of 8 on Intention Experiments. It's really aligned well with our themes on Sunday mornings, and so we have I think 10 groups now of 8 people formed, and waiting lists. So it's working really well. The thing about it is that it's helping us really connect up with people, and it's especially useful to channel newcomers in. I mean, we have, in the last 3 months, we've had over 100 new people come through our church, and they're just showing up. And Tara Weir, who is our Spirit Groups program leader, she's out there and she grabs new people, and people walk directly into our church into a Spirit Group. I mean, it happens all the time. And it's just a phenomenal way of really connecting up with the millennials and the .comers. I mean, they're just all over it.
The format for small groups it really resonates with especially a younger demographic, and that's what Robert just asked. What are some other examples of causes that seem to invigorate people in the 25 to 35 age group? How is that articulated? What I've noticed when we have a campus, and I've been to different churches that use Spirit Groups, we call them Spirit Group campuses. And I've been at different campuses where we have big billboards on the wall that say, here's a map of our city, and here's where the groups meet, and pictures of the group leaders, and when it meets, and where it meets, and what's the focus. Some of them are family focused, some of them are men's groups. So, there's all kinds of different groups that people can join. And I remember I was at a church in Denver here in Colorado, and standing by the sign-up table as they were just doing their first Spirit Groups program. And it was interesting because the first couple of weeks, everybody came and signed up for a group. But beyond that, what I noticed is there were certain demographics that would beeline to that Spirit Group sign-up wall. One was newcomers. So I would find a lot of people, it was their first or second visit, and they wanted to meet somebody. They didn't want to come and here's this big group and I don't know anybody. So I had a lot of newcomers come and say, how do I get plugged into a group? A lot of young people. So again, it's the younger generation, the millennials were coming saying, how do I get plugged into a group? And the third demographic I saw was families, people with kids looking to find ways to connect with other families that had kids outside of just the Sunday experience. So when we do Spirit Groups here at Unity at Red Rocks, we are going into our 2nd series. And we have a family-friendly group, which is attracting people that have kids. Those kids are connecting with people outside of Sunday service. So when they see each other on Sunday, it's a whole different energy because they know each other, they play together. We have groups that are for men. We have groups that are geographically based for people, because we're in a mountain community. So we have some people that are kind of out in the boonies that it's nice if they can connect with others in the area. I would find, to answer your question about what are the causes that seem to invigorate people in the 20s and 30s, I think it's not ours to answer. I think if we can give them a structure and a system to say, what is that cause for you? Create a group about it. You can create what you want. So there's a structure through which you can empower anyone at any age to take a cause that they're passionate about. We had one group that was a social justice group, and that was their focus. They invited people into their group, and that was what they did for service, was they did social justice projects. So I see lots of comments, climate change, conscious entrepreneurship. So all of these, what's beautiful about the group model is these are all great. I've done an entrepreneurs spirit group where we brought people together. We talked about the Sunday service, but what brought us together was we were all entrepreneurs. So we applied spiritual principles to our business based on our Sunday talks. So lots of really great ideas bouncing back and forth. And Barbara says, in Shanghai, I would imagine that the uplifting use of new technologies would be popular. Really great ideas. And the beautiful thing is, as a leader, we don't have to figure all that out. We can ask. We can say, our purpose is to transform lives, and you can bring your uniqueness into the systems that we create in order to do that. So fabulous comments and questions. So thank you for being part of this discussion. And I want to open it up. Anything else that you've seen or any other comments? I have a few notes here. I think in terms of systems and structure, it's that foundation that we build, and I think that's really the role of the leader, is to hold to the vision and the mission, and then to create the systems and structure where it can become sustainable and it can become scalable. What I find a lot in New Thought is we have these churches that have, they cap out at 50 people, because there's just no way if you're minister centric that one person can provide for the spiritual support of 50 people. But I can do 5, I can do 8. So if I have a small group, that's my way of fulfilling the mission and living that purpose, is I can be a point of contact for a small group of people. Janet, would you like to share? You said it's a great way to empower your people collectively, which helps you grow. And would you like to say more about that? And then we can go to Barbara's question.
Sure. Church growing and moving into the spirit groups into our second launch is that, and that's part of our theme this year for Unity at Red Rocks. We've been doing so much buildings foundationally, is that we said this is a year of empowering, and so holding each other capable. And I feel like that's exactly what spirit groups does, is that if each spirit group, their members resonate with whatever that cause is, that they're studying and going deeper, that is aligned with the mission of the church, you are holding each other capable, that we can do this work individually in our own lives, live it, and then bring it together collectively and just have that expand out to the wider community. And that's what I see that's what I see happening at our church, is that we're really developing naturally some leaders through the process.
So Barbara, you had a question for the group. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, thanks. I love that expression, Janet, holding the group capable rather than holding the group accountable. It kind of dovetails in a strange way into my question for the group, which has to do with challenges that we've encountered. We're sometimes less inclined to talk about those things because we want to stay positive in all of our perspective. But these are certainly times, and I hear this a lot from the different New Thought organizations, Unity, Centers for Spiritual Living, Universal Foundation for Better Living, Affiliated New Thought Network. I'm hearing from churches that as people become more capable, more engaged, more activated, more in tune with what's going on in a very challenging social environment, that the community of the church is being seen as a potential gathering place for ideas that have not traditionally been welcomed into the church environment. And so, of course, we are talking about political and civic activist kind of issues that they more and more actually require and deserve, are crying out for a conscious environment to explore these issues, because what's happening in the mainstream society, in the secular world, is a great deal of divisiveness and not very constructive conversation. And so a conscious community like a spiritual center is exactly the right place to hold these conversations. And so my question to our attendees, if anybody would like to take a shot at this, is as we diversify our mission so that they include some of these more challenging social issues such as race and social justice and climate change, etc., this has anyone encountered the challenge or divisiveness or resistance to building that into the mission in the church? And I think it's a conversation worth having. So I'm just curious, is there anyone on this call today, panelists or attendees, that would like to make a comment on that?
I'll comment on that, and I invite others to comment as well. So I would say for us, because our mission is transforming lives through the power of love, and because we do have the systems and structures to be able to give people voice in all kinds of different interest areas, that to answer your question, I think that kind of comes into what are the values that support your mission. So if you have perhaps as a center, as you're setting up your mission, you set up values that are aligned with taking a stand and being proactive and providing opportunities for that kind of outreach. For us, as a mission-centric organization, my focus as a leader is to hold us to the mission and to create the system through which that mission can be fulfilled. And absolutely, I see our mission can be fulfilled through activism, through social justice, through being a stand, through attending the Women's March that we just had here, in Denver this past weekend. Doing things like that together as a unified spiritual community fits beautifully with what we're doing. And I don't have to make that the mission of the organization. The mission is about transformation, and transformation can happen in so many different ways. And that allows us to be proactive in the things that we make a stand for. It also allows us to be responsive to the things that are happening in the world so that we can be a voice for that. So I open it. Would anyone else like to speak to that?
I'm gonna go ahead and call, we have a couple of hands raised. We've got Robert and Denise. So I'm gonna promote Robert to a panelist at the moment and ask him to share with us. And he's in Shanghai, so it might take, okay, here he goes. Hi, Robert, are you there?
I just opened the video. Greetings, morning here in Shanghai. And so thank you for this. Yes, we have tried different things. We've actually started a social change theater. And so we produce different types of theater in the community and did a climate change theater action theater festival this last year. And we also work with the farming community to be out, to know where your vegetables are coming from, and also reaching out to other groups who want to just kind of raise the whole consciousness in the city. So groups that are aligned with other types of spiritual background, we've created a healing arts festival for that. And yet we're really, I have to say, we're struggling though of keeping our core members activated rather than just showing up for those individual types of things. So there's lots of ideas. We have a very young city, young people who want to be active, but we have a hard time keeping them to grow, certainly on a week by week basis.
Thanks, Robert. That's interesting. Let's ask some of the panelists to comment on that, and after that, we'll take another question from Denise. But thanks. It's, you know, that's interesting. I think probably more than several of the ministers in the field are having some of those same concerns right now. So thanks for sharing it.
Red Rocks, we, as leadership, as church leadership, we don't organize any of those things. They are organized through our groups. And when the groups organize things like that, then they own them. So we aren't saying, here's a program to come to, and here's a program to come to, because that creates, what we talk about is the shift between a spiritual consumer. It's like, okay, you do this thing for me and I'm going to come, and you do this thing for me and I'm going to come, versus a spiritual contributor who is someone who's contributing to the mission of the organization. So we want to shift them. You know, when anytime you have a newcomer, they're going to come in with the mindset of being a spiritual consumer. Do I like the message? Do I like what they're doing? Do I like this event? Does it fill me up? All those types of questions. And what we want to do is shift them into becoming spiritual contributors, where it's not like they're just seeing if they like it, seeing if they enjoy it, but they're taking the ownership of it. So we don't take the ownership of those events. We give that ownership. We empower our leaders. We hold them capable of creating those events themselves, and we cheer them on. And we promote it through other groups.
So we're getting close to the end of our program right now, and I did want to take one more comment, so I'm going to ask Denise to come on screen and share, and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, thank you, Barbara. I love the conversation, and I love the idea that you know, we're creating these potential gathering places that have moved beyond just a Sunday service, and the creativity that is sort of happening all over, but just here in this conversation. And I love the phrase you used, and I use it myself, conscious conversations. And it sort of began for me. I'm a transitional minister, been in a variety of places, but right after the election, when there was a lot of shock and grief and fear, that was a good time to start conscious conversations about what's going on, and allow the political environment to sort of come into ministry, because the two never have mixed. And so I think right now we have a platform that I think would be really healthy to begin to have some really great conversations about how we want to use our mission and our core values to be expressed in the world, and not just to contain it in our spiritual communities where it's easy and all that, but how do we express those out in the world? So I'm excited about expanding our ministries to be a greater expression in the world. And I can see that when we're mission-centric, that's going to happen. When we're minister-centric, it's just about growing my church and seeing if I can get the biggest numbers, and going to conference and telling you how fabulous I am, you know. And so it just is so meaningful and so on purpose. So I'm thrilled and excited to be sort of in ministry now. So it's.
Thanks, Denise. We're getting toward the end, so I'm going to ask you, Mendhi, if you would like to wrap up, or invite any of your panelists to wrap up with just some concluding comments. And then we'll come back and say goodbye, and I'll tell you when to expect availability of the recording of this program, which will also go out to all the people who couldn't come and join us live tonight, which is often the case in people's busy world. So I'm going to just throw it back to you, and for just concluding remarks, okay?
Wonderful. Well, first of all, I thank you for the invitation to be part of this amazing community of leaders. This is such a thrill to be here with you. And I want to invite you, if you want to learn more about spirit groups that we do have, you can go to spiritgroups.org, click on spiritgroups.org, that's right, click on find a group, and you can see if there's groups near you that you could check out. Right now, we're in the middle of our launch seasons, so it's a good time to get started with one. There's also information for organizations that want to learn more about it as well. I find it to be a really powerful way to build the mission. In the next series that we're doing, we're going to talk more about creating the culture and the aspects of a healthy culture that can create that kind of sustainable growth. So I look forward to joining you on the next month's salon. And I'd like to pass it over to my wonderful guest. Thank you so much for joining. I'll go over to Janet, and then we'll go over to Dr. Simmons as well. Janet, thank you for being here. Any closing thoughts?
I missed your last piece, Mendhi, of what you said.
Closing thoughts.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. I really enjoyed hearing everyone's stories and seeing the questions going on. And I would just say to definitely check out the spirit groups, definitely check the videos by Dr. Simmons, because those are the tools that you can put in place to help you grow your spiritual center by small groups. It doesn't have to be the groups that are in the four walls of your building. It's about the cause. Are we moving unity forward? Are we moving our missions forward? And so really check out those resources so you can take your next steps. Thank you so much.
Okay, it's me. Here I am. So I'll just say that if in watching the videos that you find something of interest that you want to visit with me about, be sure and contact me. And know that I'm currently supporting all other New Thought ministers and ministries, so it's something that I enjoy doing. So I welcome your questions and conversation.
Thank you, Mendhi, Gary, and Janet. That was interesting. I do quite a bit of this, and so to find myself really engaged in the conversation is a blessing for me. I just wanted to tell you all, thanks for joining us. The next meeting of this particular, we call them online salons, of Community on Purpose is next month. The date, I think, is February 13th. Anyone who has signed up for this particular salon will receive by tomorrow a link to where you can access the recording, which will be available for viewing for about 48 hours after the broadcast. And to members especially, we're trying to open it up, but to AG&T members, we'll be able to make these recordings available on a more permanent basis. I really do encourage you all to go to agnt.today in order to see some of these social engagement programs that we're actually up to now. We're seriously involved in the new mission, and it's working. We've got a salon coming up this Thursday called New Thought and the News, with some political scientists, experts, and authors, co-hosted with me by Dr. David Alexander of Centers for Spiritual Living. And the purpose of the program is to look at news items current today that are, to look at them from a New Thought perspective, just to open that conversation up a little wider. We also have a Monday every once a month, the Divine Feminine Peace Spa with international women leaders that are doing amazing work in their spiritual communities around the world. And a lot of other things that you can find out about at agnt.today. And we certainly encourage you to become a member of AG&T because we do have some perks and benefits available to you if you join us. So we'll see you back here on February 13th. And I want to say thanks again, Mendhi, and to Janet and Gary and all of you who came. And thank you very much for the work that you're doing in the world. So we'll see you next time. Bye.